Okay, welcome back. We'll keep herding in the other kitties, but excellent to have everyone here. I'm going to hand this over to you. Want to present from wherever you wish. So I'm going to hand it over here to Rob from Digibuild. Let's give a warm welcome to Rob. It's not a golf tournament, guys. Come on. Let's give a warm welcome for Rob. Okay, getting much better.
Thank you all very much. I appreciate the opportunity to speak. Before I go into what we're talking about, what we're building with DigiBuild, one of the things I always like to mention whenever I speak at these events is how incredible it is to see the levels of collaboration and kind of unity that's come from this blockchain movement. I've been in the space about a year, and I've been fortunate enough to speak at a lot of these events. And coming from the construction industry, that is a far cry from what happens not only in the industry itself, but in many business landscapes out there. So I would encourage all of you to continue to collaborate. One of the reasons that we're where we are right now is because people have given me opportunities that I'm extremely grateful for. So thank you all very much. Thank you to Brett and his organization for putting this on. So DigiBuild is a software for real estate construction. We believe that we are going to be the digital evolution of the building process. Just a little bit about myself. I own 2 construction companies. I've been in the space for about 15 years, had a small stint on the corporate side of things, but other than that, I've been in construction my whole life. I've really got to see a lot of the pain points that are out there in a massive industry. My co-founders, John Zifchak, he has industry experience as well. He's a serial entrepreneur with multiple exits. And our CTO, Anton Polishko, is a PhD who lives out here in Silicon Valley and has been part of multiple startups. So we believe we have a strong team, and we're excited to show you what we're doing. So the real estate construction industry itself is a massive industry, $10 trillion on a global scale. If you think about any piece of infrastructure that you encounter on a day-to-day basis, it is truly an ongoing and ever-changing process. And in a market of that size, you would think that there are healthy margins and healthy business practices going on, but that's just not the case. In our industry, the profit margins are between 2 and 4% at best, and this causes a lot of budgets to be squeezed, a lot of companies to fail, and just overall an industry that is in a very unhealthy way right now. So a couple of the main problems I'd like to call out are the razor-thin margins. Companies take jobs in many cases at a loss just to continue to have cash flow and have business. And in a market that size, that should not be the case. Payment times along with those thin margins are extremely long, 30, 60, 90, 120 days. You're waiting to get paid on any work that's been completed. So let's say you're an electrician and you finish $2 million worth of work in December. You may not see that money until February or March. So it creates a massive cash flow situation, not only for SMEs who do a lot of the work in the industry, but for the big companies, for the owners, general contractors as well. There's also a lack of collaboration that comes because of those razor-thin margins and because of the lack of cash flow. So you get these massive projects where all the different companies involved are basically every company for themselves. It's not a group of companies or individuals collaborating to create a piece of infrastructure like an office building or a hotel or something like that. You get companies that are, what's the best for me and me only, because I need to squeeze every ounce of profit out of this job that I can. So what that translates to is a lot of companies taking work that they can't handle. Contractor default is also at an all-time high. That is when a company misrepresents themselves to get work that they are not capable of handling. So for example, if there's a $20 million hotel being built, it is very important that the companies who get the contracts for that work can handle it. And in the current market, that isn't always the case. So there is a massive unmet need for a credit and reputation management system or some type of transparency in the industry. So what DigiBuild is in the process of creating is our first product called the DigiBuild ecosystem. And what that's going to do is introduce smart contracts and blockchain technology under the hood into an industry that is desperate for change. So by introducing blockchain and smart contracts, the smart contracts themselves will automate a lot of these back-end workflows and simple repetitive processes that currently weigh down a lot of the budgets and the back ends on companies in the industry. If you remember, I mentioned that profit margins are about 2%, 2 to 4%. By implementing smart contracts that automate a lot of those workflows, we believe we're going to be able to save up to 20% on the back-end budget for any given company in our ecosystem. Along with that, by implementing smart contracts to handle the payment settlement and the cash flow in the industry, we're able to change the time from work getting completed to the time you're paid from 30, 60, 90, 120 days to 5 to 7 days, which effectively handles all the cash flow problems in the industry, which again, for SMEs, that's game changing. But even for larger owners and developers and general contractors, that's a big deal. What we're also implementing is a smart contract that will dish out rewards for a job well done. What does that mean? An economic incentive program that rewards industry participants for doing things that are healthy for the industry. Remember, I mentioned that all these companies are doing things for themselves and there's no collaboration, there's no common goals. So what DigiBuild is going to do is implement this rewards program where part of our fee structure is reintroduced back into the ecosystem in an incentive program, creating an ecosystem that is growing itself and making itself more healthy. And this incentives is very different from the current market where there is really no incentive program. Here and there, you'll get an owner who wants their project done early and they tell a general contractor, hey, I'll give you a bonus for finishing early, but that bonus never leaks its way down the pipeline to the people actually doing the work. So it's a really closed off system, which again is every company for themselves. So DigiBuild will introduce this incentive program to incentivize positive business practices. The final prong of our ecosystem is as all these projects are ongoing and these smart contracts are working and saving money on the back end and expediting payment and settlement times, we have these incentives going. We're going to have another smart contract that pulls the information that is happening in real time on these projects, hashes it into the blockchain, and DigiBuild itself will put an easily digestible, easy to read user interface on it so that you have a direct view of the actual work that these companies have done in the past. So now as an owner who may be very at risk giving a $100 million contract out, you can see exactly, not secondhand, but firsthand, the results companies have had in building these projects. So our credit and reputation management profile and credit score will have things like previous projects completed in the past. How many projects have you done in the last year? How many disputes have you been involved in? What is the typical contract size that you are used to having? And by doing this, we are by having this ecosystem introduced on the back end of the industry, we are doing a couple things for the entire industry. We're reducing costs, we're minimizing risk, and we are making occupancy more likely, which is at the end of the day for an owner or developer, that is the biggest thing. You want to achieve occupancy or use case so that your development can start making money for you. So the reason we're excited about DigiBuild is because you hear a lot of these Web 3.0, a lot of these really futuristic and peer-to-peer startups coming out, and that's great. I think that there is an incredible decentralized future, and DigiBuild is going to be a part of that. But right here, right now, as the market has shown over the first quarter, there's a lot of speculation and a lot of companies that kind of came out with something that didn't really have any results or have anything built. So we are a right here, right now use case. We will be plug and play into the current market. We've already spoken to many of the larger companies in the market, given some of our co-founders' backgrounds. We have letters of intent signed, and over the next 3 to 4 months, we'll begin beta testing with some of the larger companies out there. So DigiBuild, look for us to overhaul the paradigms of the building industry. Again, Brett, thank you so much for the opportunity. Thank you all for listening, and I hope you all have a great day.
Thank you, Rob, at DigiBuild. Okay. We'll give you the hard way. So next I'd like to welcome up McLean from NewCipher. So I originally met McLean when I worked here. He was part of our first FinTech incubator program. Since then, he's went on to YC and has entered the block space. He's going to tell us all about NewCipher and the exciting stuff that they're working on.
Awesome, thank you, Brett. Hey, everyone, my name is McLean Wilkinson. I am one of the co-founders and the CEO of NewCipher. NewCipher is a data privacy layer for blockchain and decentralized applications. We give developers a way to store, share, and manage private data on public blockchains, or more specifically, these public file systems like IPFS or Swarm that sit on top of a blockchain. So for example, if you're a developer and you are building a healthcare application on top of Ethereum, and you want to store patient records on IPFS, We give you a way to have those patient records be private, confidential, and encrypted, but at the same time, still have those encrypted records be shareable with valid recipients. So let's say a doctor or a hospital or insurance company. So we basically provide this access control infrastructure for DApps. So some of the things you could build with NewCypher, very sort of low-hanging fruit use cases, would be a decentralized end-to-end encrypted shareable Dropbox. So whether you want to share, let's say, photos with your family members or medical records with your doctor, NewCypher gives you a way to easily delegate and revoke access to your data in your files. You could also use it as a primitive to build an end-to-end encrypted group chat. And end-to-end encrypted group chats are actually a tricky problem, not even just in the blockchain or decentralized space, but also in a centralized context. So if you think of Telegram, for instance, a lot of you might not know, but all of the group chats in Telegram are entirely unencrypted. Everything you send across is in plain text, and the reason for that is because it's very hard, it's computationally expensive, to encrypt each message between each participant and every other participant. So if you look at some of these, let's take some of these ICO groups, which are 10, 20, 50,000 people, if they were to try to end-to-end encrypt that, that would probably just break Telegram servers, whereas with NewCypher, you can use our underlying technology to do that very easily. You could also use NewCypher to build decentralized content marketplaces or data exchanges. So in this case, let's say a decentralized Netflix or a decentralized YouTube, where you're streaming encrypted video and then only decrypting it in exchange for payment. So you could have some condition or some rule combined with a smart contract that says only give this person access to this video stream if they pay, let's say, 5 ETH to the owner's address. And of course, we're kind of equivalent to TLS or HTTPS, but for decentralized applications. So obviously, if you're using Dropbox or Gmail or any of these centralized systems, typically your data is encrypted in flight. So everything that goes from you to the centralized service provider is encrypted. But at the end of the day, you're trusting that service provider because everything gets decrypted server side. So maybe that's fine in the context of a centralized application like Google or Dropbox. We can trust them. But if we extend that to the decentralized world, it's a complete non-starter. You can't have data decrypted server side because that server, that node, you have no idea where that is. It's not in Google's data centers. It could be some random person in their basement or in North Korea or Iran or somewhere. And so what we've done at NewCypher is we've combined two core technologies. One is something we call proxy re-encryption, and then the other is decentralization via the Ethereum blockchain. And we've used that to create an entirely decentralized, trustless key management service. And I'll kind of build up to how it got there, but the nice thing about this is you're not having to trust NewCypher to manage your secrets. You're trusting this decentralized network of nodes. But to start, what proxy re-encryption is fundamentally a more scalable form of traditional public key encryption. So if you think of traditional PKE, let's say I have some secret message that I need to share with one of you in the audience. It's very simple. I can just encrypt with your public key. I send it across the network. You can decrypt with your private key. It works very well. But let's say I want to share that message not just with one of you, but with everyone in this room, everyone in this building, everyone on this block, a couple thousand people. I have to encrypt that message 1,000 times, send it across the network 1,000 times. It starts to scale very poorly. Whereas with proxy re-encryption, I can encrypt that data one time under my own key, and then I can delegate and revoke access to that data to arbitrarily as many recipients as I want. So you could imagine using proxy re-encryption, to build a centralized key management service where you have some data owner who is storing encrypted data in some storage layer. They want to share that data with some recipients. They'll create something called a re-encryption key, which is based off the data owner's private key and the recipient's public key. They can give that re-encryption key to some untrusted proxy, and the only thing the proxy can do with that re-encryption key is to transform or re-encrypt or re-key the data encrypted for the data owner into being encrypted for the recipient. And once that happens, the recipient can just use their own private key to decrypt the data. So we've taken that a step further for our decentralized version and created a split key threshold version of proxy re-encryption. So instead of one proxy, you can split that re-encryption key up into a bunch of shares, issue those shares out to the decentralized network, and those proxies have to work together in a quorum to actually re-encrypt data. The purpose of our token is it's a work token, so if you want to be one of those re-encryption nodes in the NewCypher network, and earn revenue via fees that users are paying in ETH, as well as participate in our inflation schedule. You have to stake our token as a form of collateral or a security deposit. And we use that for a couple things. One, we use it to allocate work, so you'll get work and mining rewards in proportion to your stake. And we also use it to ensure computational correctness. So it's a way to punish nodes that are malicious or misbehaving or faulty. If they go offline or if they misbehave, their stake will get slashed. Some of our early users, it's fundamentally a horizontal piece of infrastructure where we've gotten a lot of early traction is in the healthcare space with projects like MediBlock, which are using it to share medical records. Decentralized data exchanges, data marketplaces like Datum or Ocean Protocol that are using it to conditionally decrypt data in exchange for payments. Some of the decentralized databases like BlueZell, which are using it as an access control layer to control who can and can't query their databases. Another interesting one is Origin Protocol, which is the sharing economy protocol. They're using it to hide or to secure private data such as addresses in a decentralized Airbnb type context. We're also fortunate to be backed by, apparently a lot of secret investors, by a lot of the leading crypto funds in the space, including Polychain Capital, FEG Capital. We were also, interestingly, the first token presale that Y Combinator has participated in. If you want to learn more, all of our development happens in the open on GitHub, on Discord. We have a more technical white paper that goes into the details of how we've implemented this in much more detail, obviously, than I can do in 5 minutes, which is available on our website, also on our GitHub, and my email is just mcclain@newcypher.com. Thanks very much.
Thanks so much, McLean. Okay, next, let's welcome up Josh, all the way from London with EHAB.
Thank you so much, Brett, and thank you, everyone. Cool. So I'm Josh Graham. I'm the founder of EHAB, and so EHAB is a blockchain-based platform for designing, funding, and managing sustainable, affordable, and smart city construction projects. And we've labeled ourselves a blockchain-based solution to the global housing crisis because that's part of our mission. This is my first time in California. It's really, really nice. It was colder than I thought it was going to be honest. But yeah. Our mission, so I'll just skip over. So yeah, we're a wrong way. There we go. Yeah, designing, funding, managing sustainable, affordable housing projects. And the mission really is to create an ecosystem which can be a genuine alternative to the traditional construction sector, so that we can transition to a world which is creating urban places which are more livable, more sustainable, and fundamentally better for people. But before I jump into what we're doing, I really quickly want to set the scene as to why that we're doing this. So the economist Jeremy Rifkin talks about industrial revolution, and it's something that has affected all of us, and I think it's really important to look at today. So about 250 years ago, everyone was basically toiling in the fields, living in wooden homes, and that sucked, honestly. Then there was a convergence of three pretty interesting technologies, which has led to something that changing all of our lives, effectively. So that was the telegraph, the steam train, and coal power. So that happened in about 1760. And what this did was enable people to move into cities at a very rapid scale, but it didn't necessarily make life better for everyone. So the second industrial revolution happened because of the telephone, cars, and oil power. And that has obviously taken us kind of to where we are today. There's been, again, rapid urbanization, and a lot of people have done really, really well. But unfortunately, there's still a lot of people who haven't reaped the rewards of this industrial revolution. And so, yeah, we still have a lot of problems in the world today, obviously. So about 70%, cities are responsible for about 70% of greenhouse gas emissions. And at the moment, the mainstream construction sector simply isn't trying to build in a sustainable way because they're afraid or opposed to change. About 1 in 4 people live in unsuitable and unsustainable or unaffordable housing. That's billions of people. And yeah, we have to effectively, to solve the growing to meet the demand of cities, we need to build another 1 billion homes by 2025. So why am I wasting my 5 minutes talking to you about this? So I think that in order to solve all of these problems, we really, really, really need to have a third industrial revolution. And we're lucky enough that the technologies which are going to make that up are starting to converge and mature right now. 2018 might be a bit optimistic. So eHab is a platform for building the sustainable homes, the resilient neighborhoods, and livable smart cities of this industrial revolution that I just mentioned. My slides seem to be a bit skew-whiffed, so I apologize for that. Hopefully you can just about understand them. So we've got 3 problems that we really want to try and solve. How do you get